Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel for part 2 of the interview with Mathieu Cote. This is the community section where we're going to ask Mathieu some of the questions you guys really have wanted seen. Paulie, you can take the lead with this one. Ask away. Let's see what Mathieu has in store for us. We'll put him on the hot seat.
All right, Mathieu, here we go. All right, so first off, I'd like to just revisit social responsibility. I know that we had a charity case that came out that has, I believe, 26 cosmetics in it that people buy for $5, and the money goes to the Brain and Behavior Foundation. And I think you've raised over $1 million. I don't know the amount of money.
It must be much more than that now.
Yeah, that's an old statistic.
A few years ago. Yeah.
So what viewers want to know is, would you ever consider doing a charity case 2.0? And now, I know that your first thought is probably to put content creators in it, but I'm going to come at it from a different angle for you. So you know how, like with Meet Your Maker, we had shirts for every original survivor that were Meet Your Maker style.
Yeah.
Would you consider doing a generic themed shirt for all the original survivors, and maybe a charm too for the killers, for things like pink shirts for breast cancer awareness? You know, the NFL every October does breast cancer awareness, or rainbow shirts for every survivor for LGBTQ plus charities, those kind of things, for, you know, being a social responsible partner with charity initiatives.
This has been discussed, and I'm not sure it's gonna happen like that, but these sort of initiatives, we try to get we get involved in a lot. I know that as a rule, Behavior as a company is doing quite a lot of charity work, but most of it is actually local. Every year there's a big campaign with Centraide, which is around here, and it's Perspective Jeunesse, des petits déjeuners, and so there's a couple of things. Essentially, it's for school dropouts, like going back to school or not dropping out, illiteracy, fighting illiteracy, and then providing breakfast to people that are in school. So a lot of it has to do with school, because I think it's an important bit and we have to pick a thing. So there's a lot of work that goes at Behavior into those, like every year we do that. Every year I have the pleasure of being the auctioneer for an auction that we do internally, where people put up some stuff and then we sell them and we do a bunch of money. So we do a lot of those charity works internally. The charity case was done, again, it was at a period in time where we just did stuff without sort of doing our due diligence as much. We want to make sure that whenever we enter into one of those things, we do it properly, and that the money goes there. It's really difficult because of the way the revenue of Dead by the, and don't want to get into the fiscal details, but it makes it easy. It makes it harder to have a thing like that, like specifically this content, the money goes to this thing, and this content, this money goes to this thing. So we prefer to do it as a company, to do these charitable things, and then also when we do events with them, so using our voice to amplify others' voices is something that we do quite a lot. And then also it's about the type of content that we create and the collaborations that we do, right? Picking the right partner. So that's not a great answer to that question, because I know people love to, like you were saying, like some specific like causes being supported in the game, but it's also like we don't want the in-game thing to become a billboard. It's always been very important. The content creators worked at the beginning because, first of all, they were a lot of them were really unknowns, or so small that really if you were wearing a shirt, it's like me wearing a shirt from my friend's band, right? So it's just like quirky and interesting, but it's not like Coca-Cola or something like that, right? You don't want it to become sort of meta references in the game, and yeah.
It was also a time when we didn't have a lot of cosmetics to choose from, too.
There wasn't a store, so the only way to get cosmetics was either you met me at PAX and I gave you a card for the Chuckles mask, or you bought the head case or the 80s suitcase. So that was a different formula for a different time, but it's absolutely not out of the question that we will do other things like that, but I don't think it's going to be the same format for sure.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see. Next question we have here. I have them on my phone because they're from Twitter. It says, will there be any upcoming accessibility changes coming in the near future?
I certainly do not want to promise anything because I don't have one specific example that comes to mind right now. I know that it is much more a concern today than it was 10 years ago for us. Like, it's important, and because we didn't have the bandwidth, we've already done a few of those accessibility improvements. There are more coming, but I know, especially this one, put a few people on the team in kind of hot water, so I certainly don't want to do that. But I will say that it is a continued concern for us to try to make sure that our game is playable by as many people as possible comfortably.
It's good to hear something's in the works now.
All right,
You're up, Paulie.
Matthew. So, we had you on record before saying that Chucky was too silly, and now he's arrived. So I'm assuming that your stance has changed on that. And now it looks like we're going into what I would consider to be campy horror with the Boulet Brothers coming to Dead by Daylight. I would say that kicks the door wide open for some campy style horror. And do you need me to find you Elvira's phone number, or can you find that all on your own?
I wish I could say, no, I have her phone number right here, but I don't. Yeah.
So there's a rumor. Well, you go ahead.
I keep being called an old man in meetings when I talk to people about what I think is extremely important to have in Dead by Daylight. But yeah, I believe there are legends that are still missing in our roster.
I mean, if you're an icon, it doesn't matter what age someone is to appreciate an icon.
I understand. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, I've watched that, like, I quote that movie to this day. Yeah. It's a good watch. You should watch that, King. Probably.
I know. I'm just like, huh?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Boulet Brothers.
But yeah, the Boulet Brothers, first of all, I was so happy, like, when so that someone on my team, Ode, she's great. She's on the PR team, and she's the one who always comes up with, like, these strange ideas. And she's like, I just thought of something. Like, we should try to talk to these people. Like, yeah, absolutely. And she gets me interviews and things with really random people, and I love it. And some of these are super small, and some of this are just completely outside of our usual circles. And then I believe she's the one that made contact with the Boulet Brothers, and they were super excited. We were excited, and it's sort of
awesome.
Became a thing, right? It is campy. It is extravagant. It is fabulous. It is gorgeous. What they do is so creative. What they themselves do is really cool, but also the contestants on their show, what they come up with, and the artistry, right? The people who make these costumes and present them in such an amazing way. It was really cool to be able to participate in that. Yeah, it was fun.
So when you say participate, I heard a rumor that you may be a guest judge on an episode. It's
actually posted somewhere online.
Really?
So I can talk about it.
Okay, a guest judge on. Good. For those who don't know, if you've never heard of the Boulet Brothers, they run this show. I think it's season 6. Yeah, it's on Shudder. Yeah. Called Dragula, The Hunt for the Next Top Super Monster, something like that. I always say it's like horror meets RuPaul's Drag Race.
That's a good way.
And there's a rumor that you're going to be a guest judge on a
Well,
DBD themed episode, which apparently is not a rumor at all.
Anymore. It's absolutely true, and it's so much fun. Seriously.
Where did you have to go for that?
It's in LA. They shoot that in LA. And the brothers were actually super fun to meet. They are absolutely, even in person, they are much more glamorous and impressive than you can possibly think. And the contestants were awesome. I was lucky enough that I got to spend some time talking to some of the contestants, and some of them are huge Dead by Daylight fans. Like, obviously not all.
That's awesome.
But some were, and really, really excited to be able to show some of the stuff that they've done. I would say that many of the presented projects would be interesting to see in Dead by Daylight. Some of them would probably need minor alterations to fit appropriately in the game, but all of them were just, it was just mind-blowingly fun to be there and to talk about something that I love, and that it keeps inspiring people to create really, really fun things.
That was great. I remember when people
excited to see the episode come up.
Do you know what episode it is? Like in the season?
Yes.
You don't know the date or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll just stay tuned and see.
Stay
I would tell
tuned
people
and
if
keep an eye.
nobody's ever watched Dragula before, I probably wouldn't start with season 1 because they made that themselves. So the low budget kind of shows. It's much more polished show in latter iterations, latter seasons. So if you've never seen Dragula before,
one of the biggest things on Shudder right now, and if you don't have Shudder, it's a really fun network if you like horror, because they've got everything horror.
I remember on Into the Rainbow when they came in and dropped a donation for the charity, the chat lost their minds.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're big in their sphere of the world, and I'm very, very happy that we were able to associate with them on this.
Me too.
Part of creating partnerships is that, right? It's being able to, just give each other sort of a thumbs up from across the room and go, I love what you do. And the other ones go, I love what you do. And that's just amazing. And then sometimes some of your communities are already friends. And sometimes it's just a matter of giving people a little poke to go, I didn't know this existed. And then you'll make some new memories, which is awesome.
Well, I'm glad we asked you. It's great.
That's really cool. I'm gonna watch that for sure. Let's see.
That studio.
Cold?
Cold.
So cold. Because everybody there is in full, like, late. Except for me.
It's freezing your ass.
Staff was like wearing toque and like winter jackets in the middle of LA. Anyway.
Did you pick out a nice bow tie?
You'll have to wait and see.
All right, I guess I will.
All right.
Pat, you know that Pat wouldn't have let me leave the house if I was not gonna look at least good. Next to some really fashionable.
That's awesome.
Oh, this is a good one, actually. I know. So in our last interview, there's been tons of speculation from the community because we mentioned talked about a topic where there was a license that you guys had and it was in the works or to whatever extent, and eventually that kind of fell through. What that chapter is, I don't know. Maybe it was Jaws. We gotta wait and see. But from that last conversation to now, has something like that happened again? Like, does that kind of happen often? Not necessarily to the point where, like...
No, it hasn't. There's only one example of something that was sort of a done deal and then this
just didn't happen
for a reason. And it's, I mean, maybe in my memoirs that I write when I'm 87, I'll talk about this, but it was not the license that you think it is, and it didn't go away for the reason that you think. It's not something that happens.
Fair enough. Yeah, a lot of folks have been, as soon as the interview dropped, people are like, King, what is it? I'm like, you gotta ask the man.
A lot of these conversations, like we've had conversations with people who said, no, we're not interested in our game, which is absolutely fine, right? You've got the right to do whatever you want with your property. But usually that's what happens. It's very rare that we will like have two interested parties and not be able to find common ground.
Right.
Like, what is the agreement? Like, how much money do you need, or what are the boundaries of the configuration? It's very, very rare. If people are interested, it'll happen. If people are not interested, it's immediate. Like, we know.
Shut the conversations down. So have you? Go ahead, Paulie.
Go ahead. I was going to say, would you say you have to do more door knocking now, or less?
Yeah, that was
now?
Pretty much my same question.
People come to you.
I'd say it's about the same, because the people I'm looking for are the most elusive right now. The other ones we have already, or we signed them already. Like, you haven't seen them yet, but you'll see them. The one that I
soon TM,
because they are very elusive and very hard to get a hold of. So yeah, it's about the same.
Scooby-Doo. Teletubbies. Oh my God!
What the hell is the Teletubbies doing on the list?
Who brought it up? Which section of the team was it?
You know, people are gonna do like that. There was one season of American Idol. I think Howard Stern led it. That they were like campaigning. All of his viewers were voting for the worst singer, what was perceived the worst singer on the season of American Idol. And I feel like that's what's going to happen to you. Your Teletubbies number is going to be way up there, you know?
Yeah,
wow, the people really want Teletubbies.
Yeah, Tinky Winky.
Like,
let's get it.
Naming, there's a nice study that was done on like people voting to name stuff on the internet. Like, you get Boaty McBoatface, right? You can't trust people on the internet to make sensible decisions. But we still ask you.
Oh man, I mean, we've seen Stranger Things in DBD, so honestly, I was like, you know what? They already got a teddy bear walking around. I could see it. We can see
You
it.
brought up Stranger Things. Ask him the question, King.
Yeah, Matthew, do we expect any more Stranger Things content coming in the future? Have you been talking to Netflix?
I'm tempted to do my super annoying dreamy sort of thing and go, oh, I don't know. Do you expect any more Stranger Things content? Because that's how you worded your question. But I know that's not what you're asking. And that's one that I am unable to answer.
Fair enough. It caught me by surprise because I was looking through and I was like, wow, it's almost been a year since Stranger Things returned to DBD. You know, it really felt like yesterday, but that's really awesome. And I swore that I had a conversation, or at least you had, maybe it was from a different interview, of you saying like, once those conversations happened, it was relatively quick to get everything back and going. But I don't think that was my interview because it was at a different time. It was right after, I think.
Like something I'd say, because it's true that once the conversations were possible, it was simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we get some more Stranger Things. I think it's a little bit of a no-brainer as long as...
More Stranger Things?
Of course, yes, I would like some more Stranger Things. That'd be so cool.
I have my pad here. I'll make a note.
Paulie, now's your time to shine. Yeah, Hopper's number 1. Voice lines 2, please.
Okay. Voice line.
Yep. But that's a good follow-up, actually, because I know a lot of people are curious about like the voice lines as well, because when you bring in some of these super iconic characters, there's a lot of questions like, how do the conversations happen getting that actor specifically doing voice lines? Like, I know with Nicolas Cage, you said their team was like, there's no Nicolas Cage clone, like no one else is going to do it, versus just getting like a generic sound alike.
There's no generic sound alike, right? Because if it's just a voice that doesn't have a lot of attachment to, then it's not a sound alike. It's someone who's got a good voice that we're going to use for this. In the case of a sound alike, it's probably because the person has a voice that's recognizable, but they're not interested in recording, or because that's the thing. Likeness can sometimes, in the case of a character, be tied to the IP. Let's say I make a movie and I cast Paulie in the lead role. Obviously, I would, and then as Blake McCracken, who's the detective in my story, right? And then later on, I sell the rights to someone to put Blake McCracken in a video game. And maybe in the contract that I drafted with Paulie, I own the rights to his face in the context of that character. So I can sell the rights to his face to the game without even asking him. That's possible. There could be other cases where I didn't get the rights to his face. I got the rights to your face, King, as Rebecca is charming assistant, but I don't have the right to Paulie because he's a big star now, because that's the sequel. And so I can give you the character of Rebecca with King's face on it, but if you want the face of Paulie, you'll have to ask Paulie and get a different deal specifically with him. And now when it comes to the voices, we cannot reuse any of the voices. It's very difficult to just reuse stuff, and especially in the case of Dead by Daylight, we tend to want specifics. So, by definition, you'll have to make an agreement with the actual people who did the voices. I'll give you their information. I can put you in contact with their agent. It'll help. But it's up to them to decide.
Yeah, not a guarantee.
And that's usually how those conversations go.
So that's why Ripley, for example, might not look exactly like Sigourney Weaver, etc.
That is a good example.
Okay, so the Chucky license is kind of convoluted for me because we have Child's Play and then we have the Chucky TV series. I'm not really sure who owns what, but it seems like you have been able to... Pardon me?
It's Universal.
Oh, so they own the TV series too?
They own everything.
Okay, so that is not as complicated to get skin from the TV series as from a movie, which I was like, oh, they got melty face Chucky, but that's from the TV show. So how did they do that? So it's all one. So you're good to go.
It's like Saw, for instance. Lionsgate owns the right to Saw, all the Saw movies, everything Saw related, and they're very close to the original creators. So in this case, for instance, we're interested in creating something new that hasn't been seen, like the blighted outfits, for instance. And they're like, sure, show us. We'll tell you if we think it's cool enough to put it in. In other cases, especially if you're talking to someone, a holder of a catalog, like I was saying earlier, they might not have the power to be able to go to the owners and say, hey, there's a new thing using your character. Are you okay with it? Like, you were just like, no, you use the thing that we agreed on, and that's it.
All right. Well, I can make my video of my laundry list of all the Chucky skins I want then.
Matthew's going to write it in the book. Oh, man. All right, let's see what we got next. Someone asks, have any of the companies for the licensed DLCs that we have currently in the game come to Behavior directly? And if so, which ones? So they were the ones that initiated the conversation.
Yeah. I can't answer that. I mean, yes, some did. But all of this is extremely confidential, right? And it might be a very minor detail to say who tried to approach who, but either it's confidential or not, right? So you don't talk about it.
Fair enough. So someone said, since unfortunately Project T is cancelled, will we see combat focus modes come into Dead by Daylight as modifiers at any point in time?
These two things are completely unrelated. It's not because there was a game coming or not that you will see more or less mode. The Project T was canned for many, many reasons. All of them super sad. Modes and new modifiers are super fun. A lot of people are getting a kick out of them. More will be coming, whether they're going to be combat oriented or whatever else oriented. You know, maybe I don't know, Dance Dance Revolution pad support. I don't know. That's unrelated. But these two things exist. So yes, there will be more modes coming, more modifiers, because those are super fun and people really get a kick out of them. And clearly some of them will be more antagonistic, and some of them will be more chaotic, and some of them will be more comical, I think. And we'll see.
All right, here's the one King was leaving on the table for me. I mean, I think I'm not a mind reader, but I'm assuming it's Matthew. I thought we had an agreement that you were going to try to get Dr. Sam Loomis into the game.
Yeah.
He's in the first movie. What is the holdup?
I wouldn't say we had an agreement. I said, yeah.
I remember you making a note or something.
According to the contract, well,
whatever is possible, we try to do it. And obviously, Michael Myers is a great character that we know people love and love to play, and it would be great to be able to expand on that. I think that Freddy Krueger is another example of license that has been
left wanting?
Yeah, left wanting in terms of variety, and that is through no decision of our own.
Yeah.
Sad noises.
I know you want it, so, obviously. Okay, so this is one thing. So, obviously, you're very familiar with what's happened over the last few years, where they changed U.S. law so that people who wrote scripts would be able to reclaim their rights to certain properties in the United States, being Victor Miller with
USA.
Friday the 13th, Clive Barker with Hellraiser, Scream and Nightmare from Elm Street writer. Anyway,
what's the question?
Does that make it more difficult for you to even do renewals when you now are faced with split ownership between, say, Clive Barker, who owns the rights to Hellraiser in the United States, and whatever movie company it is now that owns the rights to Hellraiser worldwide?
I'll say the short answer is no. It doesn't make it more complicated. It's already immensely complicated in many cases, right? There were already some licenses that were quite straightforward and simple. Some of them that were incredibly complex and had weird ramifications. And so this is just yet another layer and yet another potential variation on the theme. But it doesn't affect all of them. It affects some of them, and some of them, it's too late for our agreement, so it doesn't have an impact. And so no, I wouldn't say it's a specific thing that has had a huge impact. It's just yet another possible complication in a universe that is filled with complications anyway. Right? Lawyers seem to spend a lot of time enjoying complicating things.
Need a couple more books on the law.
It's almost as if they get paid by the hour. I know our legal department is not. They're not on the hourly paid. They're
Fair enough.
regular employees.
Alrighty, let's see what we got next. Someone says, my question is, can we get more behind the scenes videos for past DBD original chapters, or perhaps a new art book that explains the thought process of many of the past original chapters?
So it'd be really tough to do a behind the scenes after the fact, right? If you shoot the behind the scenes during the scenes, then it makes sense and you produce something. If you do behind the scenes after the fact, there are people missing that aren't there. The situation is not the same. So it's very difficult. That being said, behind the scenes stuff is really cool.
There's
still some stuff that you can go dig up yourself, but we could probably do an interesting sort of hunt and produce something cool. As far as the art book, that's been a subject of frustration for many. We have an art book, the digital one. I have a printed copy in my bookcase here, but it was released with the launch, so it's all really, really old stuff that's historically interesting, but it's not as relevant today as it used to be. I think it'd be really interesting to make a new one. I know that some people are looking into that. I don't know if it's gonna happen or when.
Yeah, the behind the scenes stuff is super cool. I really like it. It's nice to just see. I was actually telling Chad today, this is completely random, but I remember when Paulie and we visited the studios for the first times, and we were walking around. I was telling people, like, you know, we got in, we're obviously on NDA as Fog Whispers. We signed some more paperwork when we got there, just in case, to ensure everything, even though we won't say anything. I remember there was one dev working, and we were just, like, kind of walking by, and he basically, like, covered his monitor. I was like, And I was like, I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all whatsoever. But it was just super funny to me. I don't know. It just... Yeah. I was thinking behind the scenes. I remember that.
That's good, because not everybody does that, but we try to drill it into everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't, like, some people take the train to get to work. Don't work on your confidential email.
Stuff on the work, yeah.
Even, like, I go have a beer with a colleague after work, and we're at a bar and we're talking. Don't talk about stuff, because you don't know who's sitting in the booth behind you, right? It's even like you're working from home and you're on a super important call and you're talking to people, and your daughter brought a friend over and they look at your screen and see something, and that person runs a silly little Discord channel and they're going to talk to people about, like, you don't know. You have to be so very careful about this.
Yeah, especially with, like, but again, we spoke about it earlier, but the internal leaks happening, like, if I was working a behavior, I'm taking zero risk at all. I don't even want suspicion behind, like, my department was the department that potentially could have leaked something. Yeah. I'd be on edge. I'm not showing anybody anything. Not a chance. Oh, man. All right, Paulie, you're up.
Are you working on any more collaborations with real-life people, such as Nicolas Cage?
Or Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk.
That's right. It could just be a yes or no if you.
Yes.
Or is it Justin Long?
Like, working on is a very, very vague term, right?
Right.
Even just me sitting in the bathtub going, "Oh, wouldn't that be fun?" Technically, that's me working on potentially doing it. So yes, the answer is a definite yes.
You can't tell that Justin Long just stuck out like a sore thumb in the middle of the survey to me. I was like, Justin Long? What the heck? Herbie is a car.
Yeah, but drag me to hell?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with his body of work or anything. I was like, oh yeah, he's a serviceable actor. It was just a surprise to see it amongst all the licenses, to see this one real person smack dab in the middle. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Maybe, like you said, it's just elude you.
Earlier, also, sometimes we might place a name.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sort of like another thing to test. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying we did with this one, but we could have.
Gotcha.
Or maybe we're just thinking Justin Long is really cool. And we want
I've never seen Tusk. I need to make that happen one of these days.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I heard good things. But that's the thing. Now maybe we just wanted people to look into his body of work and discover the joys of Justin Long. Maybe.
I've been watching Teletubbies on repeat, going through.
I think it's going to be a Tinky Winky Mane.
Yeah. I don't think that's healthy, but go ahead.
Yeah, no more Naughty Bear. Time for Tinky Winky. Oh, man. Here's an interesting one. This is from Edgar Allan Bro. He said, 8 years, one question. Where's the fucking Terminator? Where is Terminator?
That started.
Yep, stuck in.
I know, you had it for
old
Death
school
Guard, so
Death
presumably you could get it again, I would think. One would think.
I hope so.
Strange
Maybe.
enough, Arnold is not returning my calls anymore.
Pesky Arnold. Wonder what he's up to. How cool would that be? That would be pretty cool. I don't know. Cool. I feel like it wouldn't work in DBD, but there's been some things I thought wouldn't work that are there, so.
There you go.
Never say never.
Work in DVD.
You said Chucky wouldn't work in DVD. I was like, Chucky would be great. It was you.
The third person, again, like the things that lead you to the other things, right? Like third person as Chucky, and then you have third person as Dracula, as the wolf.
Yep.
And just
bat,
the way you built on the game and the way it's played is...
Yeah, you have to go back to Victor, which led to Chucky, which led to Dracula. And there's so many of these things, right?
Was that always like a plan, like, or at least in the back of your mind, like, okay, we can test something like Victor and potentially see if we can push the envelope?
It's never as precise as that, but there's always the thing, whenever we build a thing, we go, how will that be useful later, right? How can we make sure that we build it in a way that we might be able to expand
benefit,
so and there's things like quadrupeds, let's say, as a thing, like we're like, how would that work in Dead by Daylight? The animators are saying it would be an insane amount of work. Could we make that make sense, right? So there's questions that keep popping up that are more general terms. Being able to control two killers at the same time. Victor is an example, right? Oh, but maybe you're jumping from one to the other. Maybe the other one is independent. Maybe it's zombies, like we did with the Nemesis, right? There are subjects that keep popping up that are big gameplay mechanics. And we're like, there are different ways to approach it. Maybe we can try this. Maybe we can try this other one. Oh, we've done something like that in this one. Maybe it's a way in, right?
Right. Fair enough. We've seen a lot of flying killers. We're going to get our universal flying shape-shifting killer next. Jason the shapeshifter. All right, Paulie.
Here's a theoretical one. Since the world of Dead by Daylight is a multiverse,
yes,
could you ever see a time when we might have a killer who became a survivor in a different life, or a survivor who became a killer?
Like two different threads.
Such as, like, Rin Yamaoka as a survivor.
It's really an interesting theoretical question. I really like it. I think that the fact that someone thought of it is probably a good indication that someone internally talked about it at some point. And if you take an idea like this and you look at it and you go, it's got narrative richness in it. It's really interesting. And it doesn't have any obvious drawbacks, right? You could create a brand new character and it could just canonically be Rin. Or it could have been someone else, but we decided to make it her. And that adds richness to the story. Like, there's no reason why we wouldn't do that. And you're correct, the interpretation of the fact that, like, many things, many paths lead to the realm of the entity. You can come at it from different ways. The fact that we've said, right, that you might be a survivor, like Dwight might see Michael Myers and recognize him because he's seen him in movies, but the Michael Myers that appears in there is not from a universe that where he's in movies. He's real in that universe, and you know, those universes bleeding into each other is what inspires artists to create things, and therefore the artist that created Michael Myers was just inspired by a fluke from a different universe, sort of seeping into ours. Therefore, yes, all of these things bleed into each other, and it would be, I mean, you sit at a campfire with 4 Dwights and you don't ask any questions. So, yeah, sure, why not?
I think we have an example of that in the lore. Isn't there like a cinematic where Yui pushes an old woman off a cliff or something like that?
And it was like, there was like a body of Yui's, I think. She just keeps killing herself, essentially.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
All right, segue off of that.
Yeah.
What is the multiverse version of Mathieu Cote doing right now?
Ooh.
Probably owns a very strange bookshop somewhere. Yeah. Maybe a baker. I don't know.
Matthew's brownies.
Yeah.
Just like Mrs. Fields cookies. It's this franchise.
Yeah.
Always comes back to the brownies. Imagine, if we look at this 1 year from now, Paulie, and there's somehow some correlation with brownies to the next killer. And this whole time we've been sitting.
Maybe.
Hey, wait a minute.
No, I
got it, King.
Yeah?
Brownies is like a certain type of a fairy, right? You know what wasn't on the survey is leprechaun.
Ah.
This is all a clue to leprechaun. Do you believe in leprechauns, by the way, Matthew?
I really wish I did. Because I think that fairies are absolutely amazing creations. They're beautiful and they make the world a better place. I love people who create these small little fairy houses in the middle of the forest for random people to find. When I was a kid, we had some women travelers who stayed at our house for 2 weeks because my mom rented a room, and they told me stories of the pukas that live in their Switzerland, where they're from, that you need to be cautious of because fairies are tricky, right? And it always made me extremely excited about the world of fairies. I think there's some really awesome stories that were told in there. And I wished it were real because they're, amazing. Who knows? They've been hiding from me all along.
You know what Peter Pan said? You gotta say that you believe in fairies, right?
Yeah.
Good old Peter Pan.
Oh, we saved Tinkerbell. We'll work together to save Tinkerbell.
Oh my god. Oh man. Here's one. What happened to our golden toolboxes?
It's yours?
I don't know. It's everyone's. It's all of our
that's
well,
another
maybe
one
not.
for the history books, right? That's gonna make for some very interesting retrospective in 20 years when we can actually freely talk about these things.
20 years NDA.
One in a while. I don't know if there's one in the Devarka Deepwoods or the Nostromo. They've been hiding from me if they're out there.
Yeah.
They're gone.
We can talk about this later.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
we got
just to keep your feet on the fire for clues. Can you give us any hints on how we can translate the entity language that is in the flavor text on some of the items in the game?
Yeah, we've been asking this one for years.
I can say two things. There is a key to this. It can be deciphered. And the other thing I will say is
Suspense builds.
Curves are better than angles to fix this. That's a terrible hint. It only makes sense when you know, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, down the rabbit hole we go.
That was a curveball in itself. I remember hearing you say one time that you have heard the entity language spoken.
I did not say that.
Well, I think you did. Maybe I'm wrong. All right.
Sounded like a politician.
Well, like I woke up in the middle of the night screaming, sweating, and I'm like, I heard it.
Oh man. Let's see what we got here. These are a little bit more like balancy, but I'll still chuck them out because the community wants to know. Are we potentially gonna see any changes or reworks to the hatch and or the keys?
Jeez. It's possible. It's very possible. That's one of those things that was put in on the first days, with lots of really cool ideas behind, and it was put in the minimum viable state. So there's so much we can do with that I believe we will be doing more. Yes.
Good to know. And also,
so with the revamp of the shop, you've added some charms, which we never had access to before. It was like you either got them in the Rift or you didn't get them. So those were added to the shop. Now, people are logically thinking next steps for badges and banners, and they're wondering if you think there would ever be a time where they would be able to get badges and banners that they have missed in the shop in a similar way.
It would make sense to do that, wouldn't it?
Seems
that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Chain of events.
Yeah. It would seem like a very logical thing. I agree.
On the topic, someone was wondering if we will possibly see, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like this was confirmed, if we will see any prestige rewards happening when you hit those prestige 100 levels, and for banners or as profile pictures, anything along those lines.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say anything. You know,
that's a fair one.
Yeah, no.
Fair enough. We'll leave it at that.
Because the timing of these is so, like, if I say yes and it's not happening in 6 months.
Yeah, like, people are like,
So, yeah, I've been that too many times.
Gotcha. Puts pressure on the team, and people are like, Matthew said, blah, blah, blah.
No, nobody's happy with that.
Gotcha.
That's fair.
One of the announcements recently, I don't remember exactly what live stream it was that I believe Dave said that they were going to change the way they've done legendary skins so that a legendary character isn't stuck with just one outfit.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can tell us about that?
I can't say anything new, but I can tell you that that's exactly the issue we're facing, right? It's the fact that if we make a really cool legendary outfit, in fact, it is a legendary character, and it would be cool for that character to be able to have their own outfit,
their own closet wardrobe. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely something that we're looking to fix right now, but it has so many ramifications in terms of how we present it through the characters. Does it change? And the progression is also like folded into the same thing. And then it has an impact on the store. How do you display the different categories of things and like the dependencies for things? Can you just buy one of the alternate outfits for the legendary character?
Oh, I see what you mean. So say, for example, Chris Redfield, do you have to have the base Chris Redfield before you get another outfit for him, or do you unlock him if you buy any outfit for him? Those kind of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of ramifications, and whatever you decide is the right way to do it, then the whole store interface needs to reflect and allow for that in a way.
Right.
And then you have all the loadout screens that also need to be modified to allow for whatever new way to present things this is. And then you have all the character selection screen that need to reflect that, because you know the game inside and out, but someone who launches Dead by Daylight for the very first time today, let's say, and wants that outfit for that legendary character, gets in the main menu and sees the 12 survivors that are there, and they go, so how do I play this guy? Right? Needs to be much more intuitive and much more like easier to get.
Yeah, simple.
It's a challenge, and it's the same challenge that's faced like most live games, right? If you launch Fortnite today for the first time in your life, you will be overwhelmed. You won't even know what button to click to play the game, right? It gets really overwhelming. You ask anybody who's been playing for the last 10 years, they don't care. It's awesome. Everything I've ever dreamed of is there everywhere. But for a first-time user, it's very
quite complex.
we have the same issue. Some of my answers may feel like they're a little wobbly and not exactly what people want to hear, which pains me because I would like to have my answers be absolutely delightful every single time. But it's everything I can do. So there you go.
We appreciate you.
Some of them
100%.
enlightening or entertaining a little bit. That's all I can ask.
Do you have to go, or do you want a couple rapid fire yes no pass?
Sure, go. Hit me with your best shot.
Any more Dead by Daylight comic books coming?
Indubitably.
Any more LGBTQ plus representation in 2025?
Yes.
Nice.
Have you ever booped the snoot?
I do it regularly. Huh, Buffy?
Is Jason the next killer?
Oh, sorry, I misheard. What did you say?
I said,
Say that with your whole face again and hope that I answer?
is Jason the next killer?
I think it's not here, that's fine.
Makes sense. I think that's...
It's not me being the jerk not answering here. It's you being silly by asking because there's...
It's not my questions. These are the community questions. I'm just doing a search.
You are not just a victim of agency.
Like this one, I didn't write this one. Can you give us your best Ju-On grudge death rattle croak like Kayako? Kayako, sorry. I didn't write that. You think I want to hear your death rattle? But can you?
No, I will not do that.
Okay. Well, my last question is, have you done a pretty good job so far?
Yeah, I think I have.
I think so too. You've been busy.
I'm very, like, I've had it's 20 years I've been making video games now, which is, I think you can call that a career now. And just being a part of Dead by Daylight and the genesis of a game like that is more than anybody can in their career. Doing something that is significant, that is something that I can be proud of, and that has brought joy and distraction to so many people, inspired so many talented people to do fun things, brought so many people together. I mean, I couldn't have asked for half of it. So yeah, I'm happy.
Good. It's a
Fair enough.
good calling.
I think that's
touched a lot of people's lives. And thank you for everything you've done for
true.
everybody in the community, Matthew.
Yeah. Stop.
Agreed.
No, it's very nice of you to say, and I act silly, but it's very meaningful.
It's true. I think that is a wonderful place to end off there. I think it's a nice segue to the outro. Matthew, thank you so much again for always joining these interviews. It's so fun. I reminisce so much, like on Twitch. I was talking about it today, the first time we ever met, and I was just saying, like, how cool it was. Like, my name is King, but you guys really treated me like royalty. First time I met you, such a great impression to me, to my dad, and I was just telling chat, you gave me behavior passes, come in early, and then that extended to when we went to PAX. You even came out to dinner with us for the first time. I remember I told Paulie, I'm just gonna ask, we'll see what happens. We had the party, and then obviously when we came to Montreal, and it's just so many good found memories, and I'm just so happy and thankful.
But, I'll say something, because I guess this is the moment when we get all mushy and we throw flowers at each other. But that moment when you came in with your dad and then we treated you like that, it's because you were already consummate professional. It showed. You were taking this seriously, you were doing the work, and you were respectful, and you were putting a lot of effort in. And it shows, and that's why we decided to treat you. Because, we met some journalists with decades of experience that are jerks or just don't care. They come in late and they do a half-assed job. They didn't even do the research. Like, there are people out there who do a bad job at their thing. And it doesn't matter that you've been doing it for 5 minutes or 50 years. If you're a professional and if you treat people with respect, then it shows and it's appreciated. Well, there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're here, King. We love you, man.
Yeah.
And also, Matthew, they picked a good person when they wanted somebody for the face of the game too. Don't sell yourself.
That is true.
Yeah, both aces in my book.
All right, we're too much mushiness now. Oh man,
it's okay. Still hour here at the end, King.
That is true.
I'll do a call back to the very, very first live streams that we did way back when, and I used to end on words of wisdom every single time because I thought it was funny. But I also like doing that, and I'll say, you know what? Take the time to tell people you appreciate that you do, and don't be afraid to tell your friends you love them.
That's good advice.
It may sound silly. You may have to do some weird voices and things to feel comfortable about it. Do it anyway, and then do it again and again and again, and then feel better about telling your friends that you love them. It's
some solid advice.
I think this is where he wants us to tell him that we love him.
No, I'm not so. I'm kidding. I love you guys.
I love you too,
I
man.
do too, man.
Oh, that's my mom. Call your mom. That's probably the first episode of the first live stream. I said that. If you are one of the lucky people who can call their moms right now, take the time to call your mom.
I never forgot that. It told me a lot about your character when you said that, you know? Like, I was like, wow, this guy is something else. So, appreciated that.
You should meet my mom.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us. Thank you guys again, gentlemen, for joining.
This is
of course.
I mean, if I don't see you before that, I absolutely want this again next year. Yes, that's terrible. Let's do this again next year.
100%. We'll be there. Well, we're gonna show up at your doorstep, knock on your door this time. Hello, interview time. All right. Thank you guys again. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Paulie, Matthew, thank you for joining. As always, I'm the King. Tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.